They say that life is hard, that there's not enough to go around, and that it's not spiritual to want money. And repeatedly, they say to themselves, I'm not good enough. I say that life is filled with possibilities. Abundance is literally all around us. And you being here is more than enough. My name is Arabelle, and my assignment in this life is to question the belief systems, to learn the secrets that are hidden out in the open, and to show others what's possible. Each episode, I bring you a guest or a message that will make you question your choices, challenge your views, dig deep into your beliefs, and wake you up to your truth. Join us as we walk through this thing called life. You ready? Let's do this. Hey Kylie, thank you so much for being on this interview with us. I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you because you have a very interesting story that's also very similar to one of my best friends. But before we even get into the juicy parts, I want to ask you this question. If people were to describe you in 3 words, what would they be?
Wow, 3 words would probably have to be loud, fun, and caring.
Yeah, amazing. Now, let's go into your story. I know you have a very interesting story, and that's the whole point of these interviews is for people like yourselves, and I say that people like ourselves, ordinary people creating extraordinary results in their own way, in their own version, in their lives and business. So just take us through a story, your story that will inspire people, and whatever you want to share, feel free and go for it.
I actually am a horsey girl. I live and have always lived on a horse property with cattle, a few sheep, and I grew up in the country, basically just competing every weekend in my horse sport. So I play polo cross and I camp draft on weekends. So I'm very involved in my competitions, and when I was younger, I always was super passionate about working for myself, but never really knew why. I was just a kid. So, but I always had like that entrepreneurial mindset of I'm going to do it on my own. And, when I left school, I went up north and I was working on cattle stations, and I loved it because I was surrounded by people and horses and cattle, everything that I loved, but I knew that I didn't want to work for someone else forever. I didn't want to be conditioned to that 9-to-5 grind, or, in the horse world, it's a lot longer. It's, 12, 14-hour days usually. So I didn't want to be stuck in that and lose that life of freedom. I really wanted to create a life of freedom that allowed me to go away competing every weekend, go away traveling whenever I felt like it, and just have that next level of oh, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to go do it. And that was a huge part of who I was. And so when I was up north, I got to a point where I was okay, I think I want to move home and start my own business. I wanted to be my own boss. So I got qualified in bone therapy for people and horses. And I moved home to New South Wales and I started my own business. So I had a clinic in town, and I was then on the road a lot as well with horses. And in that time of building my business, over the first 9 months or so, I actually gave up my horses. They became, I don't want to say a distraction, but I just couldn't afford to, time-wise or money-wise, to have them in my life. So I really focused on the business, and I built a business. It wasn't quite the income that I was hoping for. So I was also working part-time in disability services. So I was quite busy. And after I built up that clientele in my business and things were running smoothly, hectically, but smoothly, I started to bring horses back into my life a little bit. Although I didn't actually have the extra time, I just had a little bit more cash flow that I could afford it. And so I was working horses in the dark every night. And when I didn't have time to work my own horses, I was competing on my father's horses on weekends or my mother's horses on weekends. And I was really just becoming super time poor. I loved what I was doing. I loved my Bowen and I loved interacting with people all the time, but I was just struggling with living my own life because I was just stuck, making everyone else's body or everyone else's horses correct when I was like, all my own passions were like last on the priority list. And so I guess I just kind of got to a point where I went away one weekend to Queensland for a competition. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm going to have to work like the next 20 days straight. My horses aren't even going to get a look in just because I'm going to have to make up for those 3 days I took off. And I was like, this cannot be it. Like, this cannot be my life. So I had actually had a business mentor of mine start an online business. And I remember seeing a few different things and, she was doing quite well and her success was building. So I was like, right, you know what? I'm going to reach out, which was a bit strange for me because I'd never worked online before. I'd always been with horses and that was my life. So, working online was a very different space for me to go into, but I just had this like huge drive of like, okay, but I want a life of freedom. So how am I going to create that? If I step out of my comfort zone, will I create it? So I looked into it and I decided that I could really see a potential in this business and I saw what could possibly be. And, like anyone, you never know if it can really happen. You just have to kind of believe. And, some people say, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, the thing that I believe is that I will see it when I believe it. So, as soon as I saw this, I believed that it could happen. So I put it into play and I had a lot of self-doubt actually come up, when I first begun. I had no self-worth. I didn't believe that I was good enough. I really struggled in not so much the actual work of working online, but being confident enough in myself that I could be successful. So I had to overcome a lot of that sort of stuff in the beginning. And I was so grateful that in the online space that I'm in, we actually have tools and trainings available to help with our mindset. And so I got really clear on like where I wanted to go and what I wanted to create. And I think that really helped me get to a point where I was like, okay, maybe I do believe it. Maybe I can do it. And then I went to this incredible event. And actually, before I got to the event, I was going to quit. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This is not for me. Like I'm being ridiculous thinking that me, like some little country girl, is going to be successful in the online space. So I did almost quit. And then I was like, no, Kylie, like you want this life of freedom. So I just kind of dug my toes in and was like, right, okay, this is where you're going. You just got to make it happen now. And so I actually then, as soon as I just got super laser focused, I actually started to see success. And once you see success, it's easy to run with it. And you're like, oh, this is a breeze. So once I saw that, it was easy to build on. I started building, not super fast, but, slowly but surely I was just building. And then I actually had an accident. So I actually was thrown from my horse and I fractured my back. So as you can imagine, I had no income protection or anything like that. I was all of a sudden without work and without an income. Obviously, like a lot of emotional trauma comes up around, after horse injuries. I've had quite a few in my life. So having another one that's quite severe was really difficult for me. And I remember like having this massive breakdown, being like, why me? Like, why does this have to happen? And I knew right then and there that like I had to allow everything to like come up and feel it. But I also knew that I had two paths, and I could just sit and stay in that self-pity and, let it get the better of me. Or I knew I could turn it around and make the best of this situation. Yes, it was terrible. Like I'd fractured my back. I couldn't ride. I couldn't work, nothing. But at the same time, I also had a vehicle that allowed me to earn money from home. It allowed me to be laid up in bed while I was on recovery and start generating an income simply from working online, using Facebook, sharing my story. And so thanks to the tools in the business, I believe, I really allowed my mindset to take a different path of what, I probably would have taken a few years ago. And I really was like, okay, this is actually a good thing, because yes, I can't bring income in through my own business or through working part-time, but I have something that I can already use. I can make this happen. And I really started to plug into like trainings, anything that someone told me, like I would implement it. I got really clear on my daily actions. I got really clear on where I was going in the next 90 days. And about 8 to 10 weeks later, I was recovered enough to go back to work part-time. I probably wasn't quite ready full-time, but, I was feeling pretty good. So I could have done like a few, 5 days a week, but not huge days. So I was ready to go back. And in that time of recovery, I'd built momentum and generated an income that allowed me not to actually have to go back to work. And I was still really passionate because I was stuck in that old mindset of like, no, I need more money. I need more money. So I actually did go back for a week. Full time, I went all in. Probably shouldn't have. And I remember saying to my mentor, like, I'm going back to Bowen full time. I'm going back to disability services. Like, I'm good to go. I'm going to keep doing my online stuff. And he just like sat there. He didn't really say much. And I was like, ooh, okay. Anyway, I went back for a week and realized that that wasn't the path that I wanted to take anymore. And I closed down my Bowen therapy clinic and I went full time online. And, as soon as I went full-time online, even though, through my recovery, I was technically full-time as well, it was when I clearly decided that I was going to do it. I matched my everyday monthly income, or my normal monthly income, within the first week. I doubled it that month, and then I went on to quadruple it the next month. And, what I have been able to create in that is so much freedom in my life. So I'm actually currently sitting in my horse truck at the moment at a competition. I'm like the first one here. I've like got yards and my horses are here all set up. I got here at like 11 o'clock this morning, and I've just been able to create like this epic freedom. That was where it was all about. Like when I first got started, it was really about having time and being able to chase my own dreams, my own goals. And, through the online space, I was actually able to create it, and, and in under 12 months, which has been crazy.
Yeah, wow. There were so many things that I wanted to like stop and just like ask you more. But the first thing that I want to say is I actually love that you're in the horse truck. That is like so you. That's like the best personal branding that one can ever get. So yeah, good on you for that. But there were a couple of things that I really wanted to ask. I have one of my closest friends. She would probably also call herself a horse lady. So she grew up with horses. She lives on like massive property with so many horses. And one thing that I learned from her is she's always learning from her horses, that her horses will tell you exactly what the human is going through, their state of the energy and their state of being. So my question is, and I know that this is a conversation that we can go into for days about what you can learn from horses, but in very, very short, like in a nutshell, what do you think is or are the biggest lessons that you have learned from your horses?
One massive thing I find with my horses is about connection. And, whether that is with another animal or another human being, connection can be so strong, and it doesn't have to be through words, but like the way you can connect with an animal and like become one, really, like, I don't know, it's kind of like this magical sense of knowing. And with an animal, and especially a horse, like no words are ever swapped between, but that like for me, like my horse is my best friend. When I have a broken heart, like I'm on my horse. When I'm upset, I go to my horse. When I'm happy, I go to my horse. And you get to share this incredible bond. And I think like a horse really teaches me unconditional love with this unbreakable connection. And I think that's probably like the biggest thing that I find with my horses.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask you that is because I'm actually practicing that in my life right now. And especially for this year, 2019, I'm literally, I became a mom 8 months ago. And for a lot of women, they would say that that's their own rebirth, right? And that's what I'm experiencing right now. I feel like I'm learning to crawl again together with my baby. And I feel like I'm starting everything anew. And so this year in 2019, what I'm practicing so many things. And one of the things that I'm practicing is exactly that. Like my dog, I call her, she's actually not my dog, she's my spirit animal, So like my dog and I, like you said, yeah, like when I say commands and stuff like that, she gets it. But it's actually more than that. She gets my energy. And that got me to really think because how we are with somebody or a dog or a horse, that's how we are with everything else. And since we're on this conversation about really chasing our dreams and making it happen and having that kind of mindset where whatever challenges that we go through in our lives, we find a way to turn it around. We build that resilience. And for me, it all starts with us. And that is what state of being and what energetic state are we embodying right now? And how are we connecting to what it is that we want to create in our life? Just like how we connect to our horses, how we connect to our dogs, how we connect to, the baby or whatever. And that's what I'm practicing right now. And before our interview, I was so excited because my gosh, like I learned from Kelly. Her name is Kelly, and Kelly taught me a lot about horses, about what she learned from them and how she has applied that even with her clients or the people who join her business, and how it has changed how she relates to other people and how she runs a business. And so I can imagine how you have subconsciously applied all of these lessons that you might not necessarily be aware of in your business. I'm just guessing and assuming because you've created such a great success in your business in a short period of time. And I can see that part of it is definitely your drive. I can see that and I can feel your fire. And that's my next question. I can also see that positivity that just shines through you. But here's my question. I know that you've gone through that phase of experiencing, self-doubt, low self-worth. Is it for me? Am I good enough? All of that, right? But then whatever challenges you went through, even just within a short story that you shared, you managed to turn that around. You managed to make yourself see a different perspective and still push yourself through. And there must be something behind it, a drive or a vision or a why. What is that? Could you share with us?
My mum always taught me, always to look at the best of every situation. So I guess like subconsciously, like I grew up with that in the back of my mind that like nothing's ever as bad as we seem. And also a lot of times like we stop 3 feet from gold. So I've always found that right after my biggest breakdowns are my biggest breakthroughs. So even though like it hurts and it's challenging and it's hard, anything that is easy isn't worth having, and anything that is hard is definitely worth it. So I think like you definitely have to have a strong why, because I believe that your why has to be stronger than excuses. It has to be stronger than your bad days. And the way I grew up was certainly not terrible. I had a good upbringing, but it was always conditioned to challenge. And I really just wanted freedom. That was my biggest thing. Like, and not just for myself, but like I wanted to set my sister free and I wanted to set my mum free. So it was never just about me. And I think that really helped too, because when it's not just about you, you're not just letting yourself down, but you're letting other people down. So for me, when, like I wanted to be able to retire my sister so she could go to uni full time and not work. And I wanted to support my mum so that she didn't have to work and spend and spend and spend just to get by. I wanted to be able to support all three of us. And when you have a really clear and strong why, even when you have those bad days, and that's okay, like it's totally okay to feel terrible or shit and like not want to get out of bed one day. But the next morning when you wake up, when you know where you're going and why you're going there, it makes it worth it. It makes you get out of bed and work harder because you know why you're doing it.
Absolutely love it. And that's exactly what I have also been reminding myself and also the people that I work with. That is, when we're chasing our dreams or when we're doing something that we're passionate about, it doesn't mean that it will always be rainbows and sunshines and unicorns. There will definitely be a lot of challenges. There will be a lot of like our stuff coming up. Even things like you said, I'm not good enough. Is this even for me? It's never going to work for me or for someone like me. All these things will come up. You will have shit days, right? But then you move through that because what's pulling you forward is stronger than your story, stronger than your excuses. And what I'm really hearing from all these stories that people are sharing on these interview series are the people who are creating extraordinary results, extraordinary in their own version, in their life and business. And I'm starting to see that common thread and common theme. And we all have our own challenges. We all go through our bad days, but then we pick ourselves up and then we move through that. And sometimes we fall into our own bullshit. We start to buy our own excuses. We do that, but then we catch ourselves and we're like, no, and have that discipline to move through. So this is where I want to ask you the next question, which is, after that accident, and by the way, how are you now? Are you like fully healed, fully recovered?
Yeah, fully recovered. So I'm back competing now, and I obviously have a lot of maintenance that I keep up with, to make sure that my body is being looked after now, which again is like kind of the beauty of having what I have in my life now is, it's not a hard thing to go and have a massage once a week. It's not difficult to make sure I have time to stretch before I go for a run. I'm not on a clock. So I have the time to actually look after my body. But yeah, fully recovered.
Amazing. Okay. So I was asking that you said after that accident, you were like, no, I've got to make this work. I'm going to make this work. Right. And then you said you dug your toes in and then you got super laser focused. And I would love for you to share with our listeners, what does it look like? What does it mean for you to dig your toes in and to be laser focused? Because I think it's different from everybody. But for those who are struggling to see results in their life or in their business or even in their careers, and they're like, okay, cool, like it sounds good, but what is it? How do I do it? Like, what did you do in that process?
So I actually laser focus is definitely the right word, but I also allowed time for enjoyment in that time. But laser focus for me meant I'm a morning person. So I would wake up every morning and write down my goals. And I would write down what I wanted to achieve in 30 days and what I wanted to achieve in 90 days and how long I had to achieve that, moving forward each day. And not just, I want to make $20,000 this month. Like, I mean, super clear. Like, if I wanted to make that kind of money, like I would write down like what I was going to spend it on, where it was going to go, in what bank account it was going to go to. I would write down, like my daily actions. I would write down affirmations of like, working with my goals because I knew what they were. So I'd already written those down. So then daily affirmations of like, I can achieve this. I will achieve this. I'm strong enough to achieve this. I'm good enough to achieve this. Certain things that like represent around your goals. And then I was just taking like that daily action of like money making activities that would helping me get there, whether that be with social media or if it is a different career, whatever you have to do in your day-to-day thing to actually make that money then come in. Obviously you have to take those. But I found like a big thing was like, it was not about time. I didn't have to put in 5 or 8 hours a day. Like it might have only been 2 or 3 hours, but I was constantly telling myself that I'd already achieved my goals, but I knew exactly what they were and I knew how I was going to get there. So like I'd broken down the steps of how I was going to get there. And I found that a lot easier because, you know, it was just like a daily routine. Like I'd get up, I'd write down my goals, write down how long I had to do it, write down how I was going to get there. And when it's all broken down like that, it becomes quite simple because you're like, oh, okay, well, that's easy. I only have to do that today. And you're like, oh, look, I doubled that today. And you're like, oh, sweet. So, you know, being clear is like, yeah, working out what it is and then breaking it down so that you can achieve it, something small every day that ends up being your big goal by the end of your 30 days, 90 days, wherever you're going. So for me, like that was what laser focus meant. And even though it seems like it's all work, I really allowed time for play. Like I had to have fun. Because if I'm not having fun, I won't do it. I think that's really important. So I didn't want to ever sacrifice enjoyment just for my goals. So that has to be incorporated in it for me as well.
Play is such a big thing, and a lot of us completely forget about that, and including myself, until I had a baby, and my baby is actually teaching me to infuse play in my everyday life, because that's like the highest vibration. And when I'm vibing high, I can get shit done. And that's like the most important thing. But for a lot of people, that's like the lowest priority. And what you just said, I really love it, because a lot of people would say, oh yeah, I want to achieve this. I want to make this much money. Like I want to get there, but they stop there. They don't do what's actually really important, which is exactly what you said, getting super clear and breaking it down. What are the things that you need to do, like in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, or the next quarter, to actually hit that goal or to reach that goal? And that's also a way for you to be able to track your progress and also celebrate the little successes or the little wins that you have along the way. So now, thank you for sharing that. And we can now see, and people who are watching or listening, like if you know this and if you have forgotten about this, now is the time for you to do that. You know, we are almost like at the time of this recording, we're almost at the end of the first quarter of 2019, right? And if you have things that you want to achieve, and if you have big dreams and big goals for the next 12 months, the time is now to get really clear and to go ahead and write down what Kylie has done, and or do something that works for you, right? But now, okay, so you've done those things, you got clear, you laser focused, and then you said you started to see success. Not only that, you first doubled your income and then tripled and now quadrupled your pay. So can you actually describe what that success looks like, whatever that you're comfortable to share with us, and then where you are with that right now?
That success basically just, for me, I don't live an extraordinary life by any means, but it just has allowed me to spend my days at home on my place with my horses. It means that today, on Friday, I got to leave home at 9 a.m. and come to a competition and set up and be prepared for a competition that doesn't start till tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And it allows me to travel. You know, over the last few months, I've been able to travel all over the state. At the end of last year, I went to Perth and to the Gold Coast, so just within Australia, but, you know, doing what I love. You know, I'm going to horse competitions and spectating and just getting to do what I love, not be restricted by time or money. And you know, I've even, you know, this is, you know, a freedom thing for me that I love. I've even gone back to disability services just every now and again because I love it. I love my team and I love my customers. And to be able to have that interaction without the pressure of, oh, but that shift's not going to make me enough money. Like, it's not even about the money now. I actually get to go and do a shift whenever I like, purely because I want to. And that feels really good for me. And same with my Bowen, you know, if I feel a bit out of sorts, I can go and treat some horses, I can go and treat some people, and I get to do it for the love of it. So I guess my success has really given me my ideal life of freedom, because now I get to choose what I do when I want. And really, I couldn't ask for anything more than that, because to me, that's what success is.
You're right. And I think that all of us really need to look at what we have on our goal list, and some of us have stated goals like, oh, I want to make 70K or 100K or whatever. And I think the first thing that we all really need to get clear is that what I really want? What is actually success for me? Because success varies for different people. For you, it's that freedom. For you, it's that flexibility. And for you to be able to do what you love to do, spend time with horses, go to competition and all of that. But for somebody else, it might be yachts and private planes and all of that. And for somebody else, it might be traveling all over the world. It's all different. But I think it comes back down and it ties back to what you were saying about when you are writing down your goals. That's the first thing that we need to do, is to get super clear. What is success for me? What will really bring happiness for me? What will make me feel like, yeah, this is, now I'm in alignment with what I'm doing? Because at the end of the day, if we're out of alignment, even if we're achieving those things just because everyone else is getting it and we feel that we have to, but if that's not alignment with our values, then it's just not going to light us up. So we're coming to the end part of our interview, but I wanted to ask you quickly about, for those who are wanting, start a business or do something different, but specifically for those who are wanting to start an online business. I know that you are able to do all of this because both of us have an online business, so that gives us that freedom and flexibility. Like, what are the 3 to 5 things that you have done, like action steps, in order for you to build your business in such a short space of time? Like, we've talked about the mindset side of things. So if you could give us like the practicality, like the action steps, so that people are like, okay, cool, like that might work for me too. That would be amazing.
Yeah, so obviously, being in an online space, I've had the ability to leverage an educational platform. So I've really had to implement everything I was taught. For me, that was huge because I had no experience. So, I would encourage anyone that is looking at starting just to take it in, like be a sponge, listen, learn, implement, follow. And if it doesn't work, like that's okay too, but test it out. And then like you start to mold who you are, because this works and that works, and you just take little pieces from everywhere. And it's always just being about like having an open mind and taking it all in and then choosing what works for you. So I find that's a big one. And, staying true to who you are. I believed when I first started that people like myself, horsey country girls, wouldn't be interested in working online. I wanted to try and like mold myself into something else, like maybe be like, I don't know, a townie or someone that lives on the coast or whatever. And I was like trying to do these big long posts that were like all these heartfelt stuff, and like it was so not me. And I was like, okay, this is not working. So then I got really real and was like, you know what? I wear jeans and boots every day. I ride horses every day. I chase cattle every day. This is who I am. And so my brand then, yes, it is my brand, but it's who I am. Like I'm sitting in my horse truck. You can't hide anything. You have to allow yourself to be seen. And then people love that because it's real and it's who you are. And people feel that. So yeah, a big one is just like know who you are, know your loves, know your passions, know your hobbies, and share that with the world, because that's when people are going to connect with you, is when you're being so real that it's like almost off-putting, but then people love it because it's just so authentic. Okay, so was that 3? I'll try and think of one more, another action step. Just show up. Just simply show up, and you don't have to show up when it's always good. Like you can share the heartache and the hard times and the challenges, but it's just about showing up because you know where you're going, and just keep going.
They are gold. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And, for those who are very analytical, who are very logical, who are looking for like, no, Kylie, like just exactly give me like the stats. Like, did you run Facebook ads? Like how many Facebook ads did you run? It's not about any of that, right? It's really about, like you said, staying true to who we really are. Share your wins as well as your vulnerabilities. Of course, there's a balance in what you share. It's not about hanging your dirty laundry out there, but know what you're sharing and that energy, that vibe will attract people to come to you. And that's one of the best ways to do business, because now you don't have to put up that mask and wear it and just maintain it. You just can be you, like you said, jeans and boots girls, and doing business calls on a horse truck. How awesome is that?
So powerful.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome, Kylie. So, one last question before we go. So, for those who are wanting to take that leap in their life or in their business, and they know that this is the year that they are going to change the trajectory of the next part of their lives, and they know that they have to do something, but they're at that point where they're going through, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't know if it's for me. I'm crippled with fear and doubt. What kind of advice do you have for them?
I guess like just to really sit with it and just ask yourself the question, like, if you take the chance and the best thing happens, how will that feel? And then if you take the chance and the worst thing happens, which is what, nothing, if that's, I mean, that, to me, that's not even failure, but let's say nothing happens, like, feel into that. And then just like really assess, like, is it worth the risk? Is it worth taking that leap of faith to get the best thing possible as opposed to getting nothing? Like, you basically lose nothing, but you have so much to gain. So I just like feel into that and really question yourself, like, what happens if the best thing happens?
Thank you for sharing all of that, Kylie. Now, for those who are watching and listening to this interview, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I am on Facebook at Kylie X Stevenson, and you guys can follow along, follow my journey, and watch me as I grow and share. And if this is something for you, please reach out. I'm super passionate about helping others achieve what I've achieved in my own life, and it's a powerful thing, but I don't want to be alone. So if you guys want to follow along, like, please jump on Facebook, follow my journey, and let's see where we can go together.
Well, have fun at the competition later, Kylie, and thank you so much for everything that you've just shared today.
Thank you so much for having me.